Coco Gauff shares classy message after beating Eala. Coco Gauff soundly defeated Eala in the quarterfinal of the Dubai Tennis Championships on Thursday, 6-0, 6-2. The importance of the match was not lost on Gauff. The 21-year-old regularly speaks with a level of wisdom and knowledge that belies her age. Gauff has recognized what Eala means to tennis fans around the world. Last year was the breakout season for the Filipina, and now she looks to take down more top-ranked stars. Gauff was asked about crowd support for Eala, and she initially joked, "Whenever you guys were cheering for Alex, I was pretending it was my name. I think it helped me a lot. If you can't beat them, you gotta join them." At just 20 years old, Coco Gauff has already lived a lifetime in the spotlight. She has felt the electricity of center courts, the crushing weight of expectations, and the roaring embrace of fans across continents. Yet, in a sport often defined by fierce rivalries and ruthless momentum, it is sometimes the quiet moments after victory that reveal an athlete's true character. Her recent win over Eala was more than a contest of forehands and footwork. It was a meeting of generations, cultures, and rising ambitions. And while the scoreline reflected Gauff's composure and championship pedigree, it was her message afterward that lingered in the air far longer than the applause. A match beyond the numbers. From the first serve, the match carried an undercurrent of narrative. Gauff, already a Grand Slam champion and one of the most recognizable faces in tennis, stood on one side of the net with the calm intensity of experience. Across from her, Eala represented the hunger of youth, fearless, driven, and eager to carve her own place in the sport's demanding hierarchy. Every rally felt like a conversation between present dominance and future promise. Gauff's footwork glided across the baseline, her backhand striking with signature precision. Eala answered with bold shot-making, refusing to be overwhelmed by the moment. For spectators, it was compelling tennis. For Gauff, it was something deeper, a reminder of her own journey, the teenage girl who once stunned the world and dared to believe she belonged. Grace in victory. When the final point was won and the handshake completed, Gauff didn't let the moment become solely about her advancement. Instead, she turned the spotlight gently toward her opponent. Her message was simple, but powerful, acknowledgement of Eala's talent, recognition of her fight, and encouragement for what lies ahead. In an era where competitive fire often spills into tension, Gauff chose generosity. She praised Eala's composure, her potential, and the way she carried herself on court. It wasn't rehearsed politeness. It felt genuine, the kind that comes from someone who understands the vulnerability of stepping onto a big stage at a young age. Because Gauff remembers. She remembers being the teenager facing seasoned champions. She remembers the pressure of headlines and expectations. She remembers the nerves, the doubts, the inner negotiations between fear and belief. And perhaps that memory shaped her words. The power of perspective. Elite athletes are conditioned to focus on winning. Rankings, prize money, titles. These are the measurable markers of success. But perspective is harder to quantify. Gauff's classy message suggested that she sees beyond the immediate result. She understands that today's opponent may be tomorrow's rival, and today's newcomer may be tomorrow's champion. In praising Eala, she wasn't diminishing her own achievement. Instead, she elevated the sport itself. Tennis thrives when new stars rise. It grows when competition deepens. It inspires when established champions open doors rather than close them. This perspective reflects maturity beyond her years. At 20, many athletes are still discovering who they are. Gauff seems to understand that greatness is not only about dominance, but about stewardship, a symbol for the next generation. For young fans watching around the world, especially in the Philippines, where Eala carries immense national pride, Gauff's message resonated as much as her performance. Sports can divide through rivalry, but they can also unite through respect. Gauff modeled the latter. Her words signaled to aspiring players that competition does not require cruelty, that you can fight fiercely for every point and still lift your opponent with dignity afterward. That confidence and kindness are not opposites, they are complements. In a digital age where athletes' every expression is dissected and amplified, moments like these matter. They shape culture. They influence how young competitors view success. remembering her own rise. It's impossible to separate Gauff's grace from her own story. When she burst onto the global scene as a 15-year-old, she carried the hopes of many who saw themselves reflected in her, young, ambitious, and unafraid. She has grown under scrutiny, learning to navigate fame while refining her craft. Along the way, she has experienced both triumph and heartbreak. Each chapter seems to have deepened her empathy. Perhaps when she looked across the net at Eala, she saw a version of herself, the same hunger, the same spark. And perhaps her message was the kind she once needed to hear. More than a scoreline. In sports media, headlines often freeze moments into single dimensions: Gauff advances or Eala falls short. But the reality of competition is richer. There was the intensity of cross-court exchanges, the strategic adjustments mid-match, the mental resets after long rallies, the silent calculations between serves. And then, there was sportsmanship. Gauff's classy message reminded everyone that tennis is not merely a battlefield. It is also a bridge, connecting athletes from different backgrounds through shared ambition and mutual respect. Leadership without announcement. True leadership doesn't always declare itself. It shows up in gestures, in tone, in the words chosen when microphones are near. Gauff didn't need a dramatic speech. A few sincere sentences carried weight because they aligned with her actions. She competed relentlessly. She won convincingly. And she uplifted graciously. That combination is rare. The ripple effect. What happens after such moments often matters most. Young players watching may internalize that respect enhances reputation. Fans may feel proud not just of athletic excellence, but of character. Eala, too, leaves with more than a loss. She leaves having tested herself against one of the world's best, and having received public affirmation from her opponent. That affirmation can fuel confidence. It can reinforce belief. It can turn disappointment into determination. And that is the beauty of sport at its highest level. Even in defeat, there can be growth. A reminder of what sport can be. In a world that often celebrates brashness, Gauff's approach feels refreshingly grounded. She doesn't diminish her competitive edge, she channels it. She doesn't avoid rivalry, she embraces it. But she refuses to let it erode respect. Her classy message after beating Eala was not headline-grabbing in volume. It was headline-worthy in substance. It reminded us that champions are defined not only by how they win, but by how they make others feel in the process. And as Gauff continues her ascent, collecting titles, breaking records, inspiring millions, these moments of humanity will become as much a part of her legacy as any trophy.